In today's world, it seems that everything is upside down. Right is wrong, wrong is right. If we disagree, we can't be friends. We can't even be family members anymore. What is happening? In today's show, my friend Tom Ziglar joins us to talk about why we are in such chaos and how we can bring light to the world, how we can be the calm in the middle of this storm. This is a show you won't want to miss. Welcome to the Julie Jones Show. I am honored today to have my friend and somebody I consider to be a mentor, Tom Ziglar, joining us in the studio. Tom, thanks so much for coming today.
Julie, it's great to be here. I'm honored to be your guest, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah. Tom and I go deep into some really philosophical conversations. Tom is a self-proclaimed nerd, and I am right there with you, learning just to explore topics. And lately, you and I have talked a lot. We've talked on our coaching calls, as I am a Ziglar coach. I'm proud to be part of the Ziglar family. But we've been talking a lot about this world is just upside down. It just seems that there's a lot of people who are unhappy. We've talked about the need for hope and encouragement. There seems to be a lot of distress in the world, anxiety, depression, especially in our young people today. And so, Tom, you've seen a lot of this. Share with us what you're seeing as well.
Yeah, I can remember as a little boy, I asked Dad, I said, Dad, what do we do? And he said, son, we sell hope and encouragement. And so the world has always needed it. But it seems like more and more it's intensifying. There's so much noise and distraction. There's, you walk anywhere and people are just on their phone constantly.
Yes.
It's like, what should I do? And they go check social media to make sure that they get approval, or they want to do what somebody else is doing, and there's not like a real grounding in what I call the truth or what really, really matters. And then you see so many lies just promoted in all sorts of media from our leadership on both sides. I mean, it's just rampant. And you've got this constant, overwhelming consumerism, and how do I measure up, and what am I supposed to do? Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, whether it's a teenager going through a crisis, or a couple who's having their first real marriage challenge, or just people doing life, it's like you get hit by a Mack truck and everything kind of dissolves, and and there is no hope, right? It's like people are in that hopeless state. Mm-hmm. And then we see it just amplified over and over again around the political issues that go on and the things that really rock our culture.
Right.
And so how do we discern and discover the truth? How do we find hope in this time of all this challenge that we have?
Yeah. It seems like everything is a crisis. Like it's the end of the world because we've come to a problem. We don't have the resilience, the tenacity, and the mental toughness to get through tough times and say, we will come out on the other side. We're going to be okay. We just have to get through this right now.
Yeah, that whole idea of grit or resilience or perseverance or being anti-fragile, anti-fragility, that's a big deal because really we were created to endure incredible things. It's our muscles. The way we build muscles is we tear them down, right?
Yes.
Right. And so whenever we come against adversity, we should look at it, hey, this is a time of growth, but the way adversity is treated these days is, wait a second, you're not supposed to be uncomfortable. It's supposed to be 72 degrees and no wind and no sun in your face. And then as soon as something happens or changes, we start to fret. We start to get worried.
Yeah.
When the reality, and a part of it is this, and that is that we, our identity is, we define it by what we do and what we have.
Right.
Instead of who we are.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Because I remember I was working with some wounded warriors, and this wounded warrior, he was an amputee, and he raises his hand and he says, how do we overcome this? And all the guys in the room were in the same position where they had given so much for this country. And I said, well, here's the reality. What you do and what you have can be taken in an instant, right? These guys lost their position in the military because of their injuries. And out of that, the things that they had went away. The things that were important to them weren't important anymore. But who you are, it can't be taken. It can be surrendered, but it can't be taken. And so we depend too much on what we do. Our identities too often is what we do and what we have, and not who we are. And that's key. And also our beliefs. A lot of times our identity is our belief, but I'm 60 years old, and there's a lot of things I used to believe I don't believe anymore. And so really, your belief really isn't your identity either, because your beliefs are changing all the time. Mm-hmm. And that's why you see the meltdowns in the public square when somebody says, I don't agree with you.
Yeah.
Well, that's just a disagreement, but you'll see somebody melt down, and it's because they equate their belief to their identity.
Right.
And so when you say, I don't agree with you, what you're saying is you're not a person. But that's not true.
Right.
That's a false belief, but that's the way people respond.
Gosh, yes, because what I've found too is that people identify themselves with their roles, their belief in their roles. So like, I'm a mom, I'm a CEO, or I'm a student, and that becomes then their identity. And then that, what you're talking about, the beliefs that go behind all of that really does cripple us, really. And I remember hearing a man speak. He was a quadriplegic, and he stood on stage and he said, I am in a wheelchair and I can't move my arms or my legs, but there are those of you sitting in the audience that are more crippled than I am, because you're crippled in your mind. And I remember thinking that really is the launch pad of what we're here to talk about today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's more needed now than ever. So many people are stuck. We live in this age of affluence. What's the disease? They call it affluenza. There's just...
Yes. Who is it that coined that term, affluenza? I remember reading about that.
Oh,
so funny.
And so we have so much opportunity all around us, and yet our own mind tells us, oh, I can't do that. I'm not worthy. I'm less than. I'm an imposter. Who am I to do this?
Yes.
And it just comes into these, the lies that we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
And that is a big deal. The lie that I can't do this, or I shouldn't have that, or, other people can make that sale, but not me.
Not me.
Right. Or who am I to start my own business, or why shouldn't I go and accomplish that? Mm-hmm. And it's because of a lie that we've told ourselves. And so we've got to examine that. We got to step inside and go, wait a second, where is that belief coming from?
Right. Who told you that?
Yeah.
Who told you that? So I know that recently you have had it on your heart to really work with those of us in the coaching industry to be the light, and to help leaders be able to have conversations where we might not agree, because, there's people who don't want conflict. There are people who are never wrong. I'm always right. My ideas are right. And so we want to be able to come together and say, how can we work together, work through issues, and be a light instead of adding to chaos? And so the program that we're here to talk about today is the Be the Light program. And that's for all leaders, anyone. If you're a leader in a household, if you're a leader in a company, if you're leading your own life, because we should be the leading lady and the leading man of our own lives, right? So how can we be the light and address issues like difference of opinions without completely melting down, burning the bridge, destroying the family, destroying the job, destroying the company? How can we do that? And you have come up with a wonderful program called Be the Light.
Yeah, and let me just talk about how this program came about.
Yeah.
Gosh, how long has it been? Has it been like 3 months now?
Yeah, 2 or 3 months.
Since Charlie Kirk. And so I'll just be honest. I knew Charlie Kirk just from a few videos. I never really followed
Me too.
him.
Me too.
I don't know if I knew about Turning Point and what their deal was, but all I know is this thing comes across the news and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I unfortunately saw one of the videos that got released almost instantly. And I'm like, this was before they announced his death.
I never saw it.
And I'm like, he's gone, just because of the way the way it came across. And
right.
And I was just like in mourning, like here's a national figure tragically murdered in the public eye. Didn't really know anything. And then in less than 24 hours, maybe even by the end of the day, my timeline filled up with either he is the Messiah or he is Satan.
Right.
And
either or, right?
And
there's no in between.
And so it just kind of wrenched my heart, and I stayed kind of quiet on it and didn't really know what to say or respond. And then a few days later, after talking to a lot of our people, I'm like just walking, and I was walking and praying, and I'm like, God, what's going on? And I got this impression, hey, you know what? People cannot discern the truth. They don't know how to discover the truth. You know, there's so many lies and exaggerations and things going on right now from every side.
Yeah.
And kind of the nerd in me is I studied Jewish tradition for a while. And in Jewish tradition, the rabbis would get together and they would argue these theological points from different rabbinic schools, I guess. And they would argue and argue and argue. And then when they would get done, I mean, this is through the centuries, they would all go eat together. Their families would stay in the same place together. They were friends, even though they disagreed.
Right.
And the principle was that they argued to discover the truth, not to win the argument.
Oh, that's different now, isn't it?
And so after that walk, I came back and I said, I want to write something that helps people to discern and discover the truth. And it ended up being the Truth Compass, and there's 13 principles on that.
Right.
But the first one was that we don't argue to win the argument. We argue to discover the truth.
Yes.
Right. And when you sit down with somebody, that is a powerful, powerful way to begin. Because right now, it's almost anytime you see people going at it, it's immediate defensiveness and attack and desire to win. And unfortunately, in the process of that desire to win, they're willing to do anything to take down the other side, including personal attacks and those kind of things. And that's just,
right.
That's not something that ever works. That's why we've got more division than we've ever had before.
Yeah. Because we always want to be right. For some reason, we feel that whenever there's a disagreement, we're right, you're wrong. And we fight to the death in some points. You know, sometimes people lose their lives because they're saying something that you don't agree with.
Absolutely. And when we look at kind of that division, I call it purposeful polarization. I love politics, studied it in college and thought I might go into politics, but my heart's just not tough enough. I don't know what the word is, but it's too brutal for me.
It is brutal.
But in political polarization, it's intentional. And so they did this experiment where they took a dozen people who were a little right of center, and they gave them a social problem, and they said, come up with a solution. And the 12 people a little right of center, their solution was further right than the average of the 12. And then they took 12 people who were a little left of center, and they said, hey, here's the social problem, come up with a solution. And they came up with a solution that was a little further left than the average of the 12. And so what happens is when we get in the echo chamber of people who think and believe like us, and we start coming up with solutions, we start moving to the right and moving to the left, right? So if we're naturally a little right, we move further that way. Same further left. And so the social media companies know this, whether it's Facebook or TikTok or any of these groups, they know this. And so what they do is they feed you information that you want more of, which tends to move you further in the direction you're already going.
Right.
But they're doing that for two reasons. Number one, it's far easier for them to monetize you, to predict what you're going to want, to predict the behaviors you're going to have. And number two, they can control you. And so we've got to like step back and understand that, we are part of almost a game. Like we are, we're not the customer, we're the product in these environments. And so we've got to, if we want to be the light, we've got to understand that we're getting information that's intentionally moving us in a direction that's not in our best interest.
Right.
It's in the best interest of the people. And then how we respond to that is it's either going to like double down on biases that we might already have.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gonna make other people lean further in the direction they want to go. And I don't know about you, but my feed, it's like similar. And then there'll be the crazy post that just makes you want to go nuts. Well, I think that's probably intentional too, because I don't know those people. Of course it is. Yeah, I don't know those people.
Yeah, so the algorithm is so funny too, because somebody said that this the other day, that the phones are somehow, watching us. Like when we go into like a studio here, they're going to know you were here. So you're going to start seeing things on your feed that have to do with PR, have to do with videos or YouTube or something like that, because they know this. They know where you are. They track you. And so that gets into your algorithm, right? And then they start seeing your reactions. So it is, it's almost like we're part of the Truman Show. Do you remember that movie?
Oh, yeah.
Where he thought he was, he was living his life, living his best life, but it was all scripted. Reality TV show is what it was, or they call it that, but it's not reality at all. So I think you bring up a really good point in that we have to understand that we're being pulled by the algorithm. We're being manipulated by the propaganda machine. And so we have to step back and say, is this the truth? And we have to take responsibility for ourselves. And you've talked about this too on your health journey. You've been on a health journey for a while, and you've been on stage speaking about this, how you had to say, what's best for me? Like there's not one diet that fits everybody, but you found the diet that works for you. You found the exercise program that works best for you, but you said, I'm taking control of it. I want this blood work. You found doctors that fit you because you said, I'm going to be in control of my life. And I think that's a first step, is understanding no matter what it is, if it's health, if it's career, if it's life, if it's social media, we have to be in control of ourselves, and we have to find out for ourselves, what is the truth? What is the truth? The truth, not my truth.
The truth. Yeah. And so I love that health journey example. Is the first thing I had to do is come up with, well, what is my definition of success, right? So what is that standard? And so I really came up with two. I really like metabolic wellness, which has 5 markers in it, and waistline and blood pressure and, different things that it measures in your blood. But also I wanted my blood test done at a very deep level.
Yep.
Because if I eat according to a certain plan, I'm going to know the next time I test my blood, and I test my blood 2 to 3 times a year. So I'm going to know if I'm making progress or not making progress. And so I run very, very well on a whole foods ketogenic diet, which is simply whole foods is no ultra processed food. And
so open a can or a package, right?
Yeah. So if it's basically food the way God made it, that's the way I eat it, right? Food. And I do better on a ketogenic diet, so lower carb. And I would say that anybody in the world is going to do better on a whole foods diet. There is no way that processed foods are going to create the life and the health that you want, right? It doesn't matter. But you might be better off on a Mediterranean diet or a paleo diet or any of these versions. But if it's whole food centric and then you're testing your blood work, then that's good.
Yes.
And so I like to differentiate in this whole thing of discovering truth, the difference between little t truth and big T truth. Because we were talking earlier about, well, people say, well, my personal truth is this. Well,
that's right.
I just want you to know, I checked out Chat GPT and I said, can truth contradict itself? And it can't, right? By definition, truth cannot contradict itself. So when people say my personal truth is, I like to reframe that and say, wait a second, that's probably your personal opinion or your personal belief. It doesn't mean that just because you believe it's true, it is true. And so that's a little subtle thing, but it's actually very, very important, because if the truth cannot contradict itself, then we want to anchor our life on the truth, right? On the things that are always true. Because then there's certainty, then we can move in a certain direction and we know that we're going to come out ahead, we're going to win, we're going to prosper, we're going to do the things that need to be done in order to have the life that we want. But people instead anchor their life on beliefs or whims or fads or what everybody else is doing, and they end up in that hopelessness spiral, right?
That's right.
Because there is no satisfaction or fruit that comes from that.
That's right. There's no truth. There's no truth. I think this is such an important lesson for us as leaders, because you and I both go into companies and we work with leaders and we help leaders become better leaders, because great companies are built by culture. And your dad says, one of my favorite quotes, we don't build companies, we build people, and people build companies. Yeah. So the more that we pour into the people of a company, the greater the company is. Right? The greater the company will be. And so what then happens if you're a leader and there's conflict? There's a situation that we have to handle. There is an SOP, so to speak, for having these conversations. You call them coach leader conversations, but there is a way that you can go in and say, let's work this out. Let's come out on the other side. And we can come to the table with differing opinions, but we can work it out so that we can actually be a greater team, a greater company in the end. And I think having the truth and a mission, values, whatever the truth is, let's go back to that. That's where we start. Isn't that how you coach people?
Yeah, absolutely. In a business will usually have a mission statement, and I like really simple ones. I learned this from Howard Partridge. So whatever business you're in, let's just say you have a plumbing business. So your mission statement could be to provide the most phenomenal plumbing experience possible.
Perfect.
Right? That's just simple.
The best.
Everybody on the team, when you're having a conversation with a customer or whatever, you know what the mission is. And then you can have core values that are, unifying and unique to your business. So you might have a core value of fun, or plumber Jimmy Hiller, he's got the core value of care.
Right.
We just care, right? What is care? Well, that's how we do it. I love that.
I love that too.
And so now let's just say you have a team member and they act out of, they do something that's not right. Right? They don't finish a job. They don't do the paperwork. They leave something undone. They didn't quite finish what they were supposed to, whatever that is.
Right.
So now you got to have that conversation. Mm-hmm. And so what we have is, the truth. Another word for the truth they call is the highest standard. So as business owners, we like to set the highest standard and give the deepest grace.
Oh, I love that.
And the highest standard means this is what we aspire to. This is what we want to be known for. We want to be known as the plumbing company that cares, right? We want, that's who we are when we get a review on online, it's like, I want to see in there, hey, they really cared about us, right? They took that. That's what I want to see. But people are people. People mess up. People have a bad day. People think they were doing what they're supposed to and they weren't. Sometimes we take a shortcut because we get in a hurry. And so now you've got to have that conversation.
Right.
And it's really simple. You just identify the behavior that they had and say, hey, help me understand how that behavior, what you did, allows us to fulfill our mission statement. And so what we've done is we've compared their action against a standard, because we got to have a standard. If we have no standard, we're soon out of business.
The truth, the standard, right? This is where we go back to.
Yep. And so there's 5 reasons why they may have missed it. Maybe they didn't know it was their job. Maybe they were never trained to do that job. Maybe they didn't have the resource to do that job. Maybe they were doing another job instead of that one, and that's why they missed it, because nobody told them the priority. Well, those are leadership problems, all 4 of those. But the 5th one is an attitude problem. They didn't do it because they chose not to. And we all need a standard when it comes to.
Right.
And so what I like to say is our attitude is simply the outward expression of our inward character.
Wow. The outward expression of an inward character.
Yeah. And so when you see somebody with a great attitude, it's usually a combination of character and integrity and love and loyalty and hustle and all these different character qualities, and they're expressing it on the outside. And by the way, you can be introverted and still express all those things.
Yes, you can.
Right? It's not just vivaciousness or energy that does that. It can be a lot of different things. But when somebody's committed to developing their character, then the fruit of that shows up in everything that they do. And so in our world with this, this idea of be the light, we've got to express that. And so when somebody says something obnoxious online, we now have an opportunity to either just observe it, amplify it in a negative way, or be the light. And one of the things that frustrates me more than anything is when people who positionally I might agree with where they're coming from, but in the expression of how they do it,
yes, can't
use the tactics that give the other side ammunition.
Right. Well, and that again, that's the expression of the inward character, right? The way that you handle something. If you handle, you may be right, but if you handle it incorrectly, then you've lost all of your significance.
Yep. Zig Ziglar said, you can disagree without being disagreeable.
Yes. Yes.
One of the 13 principles in the Truth Compass is find common ground.
Yes.
And I can't remember this man's name, an African-American man. I heard him interviewed, and he has befriended hundreds of KKK members, and over 200 of them have left the Klan because of his friendship.
Right.
And so
he's the light.
So the interviewer's like, how can you do that? I mean, these people are abhorrent. They would wish you dead, or all these things. And he said, well, I had to make a choice because this is a real problem. And so I decided to love them and to find common ground. And he said, well, tell me about the common ground. And he said, well, unfortunately, their experience is they've never met somebody like me. I'm often the first person of a different race they've actually had a conversation with, because they've been getting hammered over and over and over by a certain belief system.
Right.
And so when we have coffee, he said, we talk about sports, we talk about family, we talk about music, we talk about our favorite food. And all of a sudden they say, wait a second, we're a lot more alike than I thought.
Right.
And then the interviewer said, but how do you enter into that conversation? And he said, well, I just respect them. And he said, well, how can you respect what they believe and what they say? And he said, oh, I don't. I don't respect their beliefs, but I respect them as a person.
As a person.
And I think we lose that, right? It's just because we disagree with somebody doesn't mean that we can't respect them.
Right.
And so going back to that political polarization thing, if we keep hanging around people who think exactly the same way, and we start edging out further and further in whatever direction we're in, eventually we never invite somebody from the other side of the table.
Right.
And what does that mean? It means that 200 people are still trapped in the KKK because they interviewed him and they said, so why did they leave? And he said, think about it. It's a life of misery.
Yes.
Your whole life is built on hate, and you don't have what you want because somebody else is keeping you from it.
Gosh.
And that was Zig Ziglar's power, is he would stand on stage and make people, he never down talked or down mouthed anybody, whatever career they had, whether faith they had or no faith. He never spoke negatively about it. He just made people want what he had.
Mm-hmm.
And he said in the series Born to Win, he said 7 times, I have walked in your shoes. Isn't that common ground?
Common ground.
And what he meant was, I've struggled, I've had heartache, I've failed, I've gone through the disappointments in life, and I've found a way to overcome that, a belief and a hope and a truth that allows me to get there. Don't you want that? And people do.
Yeah.
And so we can be the light in every scenario. And so the Be the Light program is for leaders, for coaches, for anyone who's navigating. And originally I thought, gosh, we were going to help the conservative dad repair their relationship with their liberal son, right? I thought that's what we're going to repair. But when we really got into it, the 6-step process that we go through to help people see the truth, it's really about the lies we tell ourselves.
If you want to change your life, you got to start by changing you, right? You got to look at you and say, where do I start?
That's right.
I love this. And Tom, I think if anyone's watching this, the hope and encouragement that we wanted to bring to you today is that you can be the light. Change starts with you. You can decide right now to have a conversation and to say, what is the truth? What do we have in common? And where do we go from here? And it's okay to disagree on issues as long as we're respectful to each other. And we need to all come back to this, whether you are on a different political spectrum or if it's religion, whatever it is, come to common ground and be the light, because this world needs more light. And we need to make sure that we are all trying to be that light. And Tom Ziglar, you are the light. You really do bring such bright light to this world. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, you are a big part of that in what you do in the Ziglar family and your coaching and how you've poured into our people. And so I'm grateful to be here.
Well, I'm grateful to be here as well. I'm grateful to be a part of the Ziglar organization and this family. Been important to me since I was in middle school when I first discovered Zig Ziglar, and then recently met Tom, his proud son, carrying on this legacy. You're doing a great job. Thank you so much. If you want to know more about the Be the Light program, be sure and reach out to Tom Ziglar at tom@ziglar.com, right? That's his email. And if you'd like to know more about coaching for us and how you can aim for what you want and how you can elevate your presence, be sure and leave a comment below. We'll reach out to you. Thanks so much for joining us, and go out and be the light.